Welcome to the future, you guys. We are live today on Wednesday. I think you might be getting too much of us. What are we going to be talking about today? We're going to be talking to author, entrepreneur, designer, creative director, entrepreneur, maybe I said that already, of brand intervention. His name is David Brier, and he's going to be joining us today on The Raw Show, you guys. David Brier was born in Brooklyn. He made his way to Manhattan to create his career. He went to the School of Visual Arts in New York City. Here's a few things I know about Mr. David Brier. He created a viral video that has, at this point, over 366,000 views on YouTube. Pretty cool. He's won more awards than I can count, 330 international design awards, and the most notable to me, because it has the word presidential in it, the Presidential Ambassador for Global Entrepreneurship. There's a super cool medal that he has. If you search for him, you'll see him holding it up. You know, another cool thing about David is he got Mr. Shark Tank himself, Damon John, wrote the foreword to his book, Brand Intervention. He's been featured in so many different magazines and publications for Fast Company, Adweek, Forbes, New York Times, Communication Arts, Inc., Dieline, and so many more. If you don't know anything about this book, perhaps you will know a little bit more after the show, but here's a spread from the book. I really like the boldness of the design of the book itself, and he's one not to mince words, so there are few words in the book, and it's printed in big, bold type, super easy to digest. He's been able to distill a lot of knowledge in a very long career into like bite-sized pieces that you can read, process, understand. Here's an example of some of his work. This is for a company called True Taste, and what I love about this, and when we talk about branding, we're going way beyond the graphic design of it. We're talking about how it speaks and the messaging. There's a metaphor he makes about it. It's like, what are the refreshments at your party? That's the messaging. And the line here that you can't see, and I'll blow it up for you, and he wrote this line, delicious, nutritious, nothing suspicious. I like that. So good. And here are some ideas, 6 quotes that he thinks are really important. And since it's very hard to read, I'll just read it here for you guys. Branding is the art of differentiation, and that's reiterated throughout the entire book. Number 2, having awesome brand facts that customers have to search for is like having buried treasure. Number 3, it's wonderful only if you can find it. Number 3, I could read this. There's a law. If you're using cliches in your branding, you're promoting your category and not your brand. Something to really think about, you guys. And we'll talk more about that with David in a minute. Social media won't save your brand if you have nothing to connect with. Number 5, I'm sorry I'm doing such a bad job of reading this, you guys. When the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem begins to resemble a nail, and that's Abraham Maslow. And last, cookie cutters are for baking, not for branding. And this is where David works. This is his office, and we'll be talking to him, and you'll see him in his office. And before we do all that stuff, you guys, roll the titles! All right, David, welcome to the show. Can we see Mr. David Brier? There you are in his studio. So you guys saw earlier the wider shot. And we got this working, and we're live. We're a little bit late. I'm sorry, you guys. Nobody's going to get fired. This is mostly my fault. We're having some internet connections here. David, welcome to the show. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks so much for having me. I'm pumped, as you can probably tell by all the crazy stuff I've been posting over the past month.
You're a little bit excited about this. This is awesome. I love your energy and your enthusiasm. Maybe you're over-caffeinated at the moment. Who knows? Or maybe this is your natural state of being. Now, I know that when I read things about you, you're very proud of being a New Yorker, but you're not in New York right now. Where are you?
I'm about an hour east of Minneapolis. We're in western Wisconsin. And I remember when I first moved out here, people were kind of like, "You're from where?" And what's a New Yorker doing here? Mm-hmm. And I said it's part of a witness protection program, and I would just like to say deadpan. And then they'd see that I had this little turn to my mouth, and they would then go, "Oh, okay, he's joking."
He's teasing us a little bit.
We hope. Yeah. We hope. Yeah.
Okay, so before we dive into the show, I have a lot of questions. Look, I'm holding the book here, guys. I have the book. I've read the whole book. I've got little notes here, so there's lots of things for us to talk about. Before we dive into this, I want to give you guys a heads up on the show itself. we're doing some giveaways today. We're giving away a few things, and this is awesome that David's doing this. First, the giveaway I think that you all want is what I'm going to hold in my hands, and I'm going to tell you in a little bit about how to win one of these things. So I myself have a handful of hardcover books and that are signed and autographed by the author. I hope the exposure is okay. You guys can see that. We're going to give some of those books away. And David also has a couple of really cool bags of coffee. As you can tell, he has a thing with coffee. David, what does that look like? There
It's
you go.
right there. This is that we had when the book was first done. I'll give you the little backstory. I was in August last year. I was speaking at the Museum of Modern Art. When I was done with the gig, I kind of was roaming around the streets, just street walking like a native New Yorker. And I found this place that had the most amazing collection of coffees. And anybody that follows me and knows me, they know that I really like really excellent coffee. And so I found this roaster. This coffee was ridiculous. And anyway, so I ended up having them roast a batch just for the launch. So I have about five bags of these that we're going to make available to some of the folks that are going to be participating in today's activity.
Okay, so we got books to give away, and we have some bags of coffee, excellent Supremo coffee by a coffee aficionado himself to give away with the special brand intervention packaging design. But wait, there's more. It's like I'm like Ron Popeil right now. There's more. So those of you guys that are tuning in, just for our YouTube audience, we're going to give away something. I have to tell you how to get this. The rules of brand intervention. These are 22 of David's rules distilled into this PDF, and we're going to give it away to a couple of people. So how are you going to win any of this stuff? You're going to go on Twitter, and Dave, you tell them, and I'm going to tell them the hashtag. You're going to use this hashtag, David Brier Live.
Yep.
BRIER Live. David Brier Live. Right. Use that hashtag, and then what do they need to do?
Basically, what you need to do is, you need to show that what you're actually learning from today's show, that it somehow is functioning as a little bit of a remote intervention for you. So show your love and your passion. I need you to be with a cup, an espresso cup, sometime, and capture yourself and post it with the hashtag on Twitter. And when and we're going to end up choosing as we go, we're going to go, okay, this person nailed it. Because as an aside, for those that have kind of followed this, one of the things that happened, and the inspiration behind this, was one of the things that happened when people started getting the book, is they started taking photographs of themselves reading the book. I have people, book owners,
I've seen those. Those are good.
They're amazing. I mean, I have someone who's ice fishing. I have a dentist who's ignoring a patient who's sitting there actually reading the book. And I have someone who's in a bubble bath. I have people like all over the place, people in coffee shops all around the country and overseas. Even Ian from Logo Geek sent me his. And so as long as we just get some of that kind of energy, then we'll pick and we'll go, okay, bang. And I will ship. Now, the only caveat on that is got to be a U.S. address. I'm not going to ship this overseas.
Okay, that's fair. I think that's a fair requirement of the show. We're giving away free stuff. We don't want to pay $60 to ship you something that's already valuable. So let's recap here. You need to take a picture of yourself. You need to take it today. Holding up a cup of coffee. It doesn't need to be coffee inside, whatever your beverage of choice is. I don't even drink coffee, so I'm going to hold something. You need to be really creative and show how your day is being interrupted, right?
Yep.
Or intervene. There's some kind of intervention happening. Awesome.
Yep.
Great. So I'm going to jump into having a couple of questions here. Let me see here. My questions. Let's start at the beginning here. How do you define branding? What's the difference between identity design and branding? This is like a big thing. We just need to clear it up. So I consider this part a public service announcement for the good of the people. Please clear this up for us.
All right, good. So, all right. So the first thing is how do you define branding? Now, I'm going to give a little backstory here to really give a context, because I remember some years ago, I had reached a point where I was seeing, and I know you're kind of like an avid learner. I'm an avid learner, and I consider the best entrepreneurs and the best designers to be those who are always interested in learning more and refining their game and honing their skills. So what happened is I was curious. I went to Amazon and I typed in branding, and this was let's say about 4 years ago. At the time, and looked under books, and I got over 6,000 books. I think I did the math. I think it would take you, I forget how many hundreds of years it would take you if you read one book a day, but the idea that there were over 6,000 books on a very specific exacting tool was one thing that I was rather surprised about. I can understand several hundred or even up to 1,000, but 6,000 plus, and now it's actually over 8,000 plus.
Wow.
So that was one thing. The other thing was that I saw that there were a lot of like different ideas and what you do. And what I personally found when I was reading a book, I would take a 300-page book and I'd find 10 pages of it would tend to be like the meat, and the rest was filler. It kind of like it was explaining what those 10 pages actually did. I didn't need that, and you see by the style with which I wrote the book, I give you like chunks that you need and just trim all the fat, eliminate the bullshit, the whole deal. So what I brought it down to was the branding came down to 4 words. With all the different philosophies and theories that people had, it came down to the art of differentiation. Those 4 words, because our job, our role as designers is when we're taking a product or a service, our job is to put it into a space where there's already players. There may be a lot of players, maybe a very, very crowded, maybe not so crowded, but if it doesn't succeed in getting noticed and recognition for our client, then the problem is going to be that we have failed to differentiate amongst all the choices out there.
Okay.
So that's how I define branding. Branding is the art of differentiation. And I personally use this not only for branding, but I've also helped philanthropic activities that I'm involved in. And I've literally raised millions of dollars using that one definition.
Okay, so I have a lot of questions for you. Then how does one differentiate? And then I want to be clear because I have a point of view on this is somebody could argue that when you change the logo or the identity design, you're differentiating. Is that enough?
Well, the full concept is what are you differentiating against? It's not just It's not just change for change's sake, and it's not just differentiation for differentiation's sake. But like let me give you this frame. So if we were to pick any topic, whether we're going to talk about coffee mugs or we're going to talk about sneakers or cars or computers or whatever, we could Google whatever we want, and we would end up with hundreds or thousands or more options back, right?
Yep.
Okay, good. So now, understanding that there's all of those choices, the job of differentiation is in that world of options. So everything we do, so that logo, the name, the slogan, the package, the overall brand vocabulary, the color, the aesthetic, all of the components that go into the brand, they have to work toward differentiating. That's why, and the great successful brands, like neither you nor I are going to confuse Nike with another brand. We're not going to confuse Tommy John underwear with other underwear. We're not going to confuse Apple products with other products. So those are well differentiated brands, and they're differentiating themselves in all of the noise that's in that space.
Okay, that's making sense. So you're looking at differentiation in a much larger, a bigger way than just one aspect of it. So if I just write slogans, then that's not enough. If I just design packages, that's not enough. It has to be the entire brand itself and every way that a customer comes in touch with that.
Every touch point. Every touch point.
Okay. So for me, you've cleared up the whole differentiation thing, and I like that you use the word art. So then there's that part. So it's just not differentiate, it's the art of differentiation. So there implies some kind of creative process there. Can you speak about that a little bit?
Sure. And let me also frame this as well. And I say this at the beginning anytime I'm talking anywhere. Because if this isn't understood, you and I could say the most brilliant things today.
Yep.
And people walk away with minimal value, and that would be a shame. So for me, this is an important point. I'm very much of the mindset that rules enable one to follow, and knowledge enables one to lead. You and I are going to be talking about some things, and we're going to be answering questions and such, which I'm super pumped to do. But the thing is the worst thing that could happen is that people would be listening this, hearing it, and taking it in as, oh, that's something I've got to follow. That's a thing that I must do, and sort of have it as part of a regimen. I'd rather them have this in the context, these to give you the necessary insight, orientation, so that you can now have judgment it's kind of like the ability of someone who can actually think on their feet. It's
Right.
kind of like that ability to be agile and to be able to shift and know. Those who are only regimented, who only have rules, it's like if something new and unusual comes into play, they're like, their head freezes. I don't know which way to go.
Right.
As opposed to someone who's like, oh, okay, that's what happened there. Bum, 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 bum. That ball dropped, or this,
Right.
now they can think. So I just want to frame it. So the thing about this is knowledge. So yes, there are certain points with regard to this. One of the things that I go over in terms of the art of differentiation is that it's the thing that I do at the beginning of any project. I'll do what I call a competitive study.
Mm-hmm.
Many people do that. Not everybody knows exactly why they do the competitive study. I don't do it just because it's like I want to see what everybody else is doing so I can like put my own twist on it or something like that. I want to see what is the noise level. What I discover and have discovered over the course of my career is that every industry seems to so many of the majority of the players are doing their own variation on basically the same thing. They're kind of like doing a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Great example. Remember Dyson vacuum cleaners when they first came out?
Yeah.
Like he came out, right? The vacuum cleaner industry was stagnant for what, 50, 60, 70 years? They were all doing variations on the bag, the suction thing, and they were all just changing colors and doing nothing different. Now he used design, not only in terms of the function and having his little
cyclonic technology, whatever that's called.
Yeah, exactly. And so to have besides the technology inside, he also you actually had the translucent casing, so you saw the stuff being suctioned up. He also used colors. He introduced colors that nobody ever did. But I remember when it came out, it was like within a matter of weeks, all of a sudden, the entire industry of vacuum cleaners, everyone else was yesterday's vacuum cleaner. It was the history of vacuum cleaners.
Right.
This is the future here. And he used art, design, aesthetics. He used all of those things. Really
Innovation. Yeah. And they had a clever way to, they had a really clever way to market the product and talk about you'll never need another like bag again and it never loses suction because of the way it's designed. Whether it's true or not, I don't know. But you're right.
Yeah.
When they came out, basically he fossilized every other vacuum cleaner company, and you saw in a matter of months, sometimes years, other manufacturers, the leading manufacturers prior to that point in time, copy a design, copy the idea. And he's been able to innovate because now he makes hand dryers, he makes heating units, cooling units. Basically, when you invent and come up with this turbine or whatever he's created, he's like, what else can we use this for? So I want to recap here a little bit. So rules are good, guidelines are good, but that's what they're meant to be, just to help you know how to play the game. And then you have to play it sometimes in unconventional ways. And when there's an opportunity to really disrupt or come up with something new, then you go for it and you say, screw the guidelines. I'm going to color outside the lines right now. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, excellent.
Yep.
Now, before I get into my next question with you, I can see some chatter on YouTube right now. There's some confusion, and I realize I didn't do such a great job. So what you want to do, you guys, is get onto Twitter, take a picture of yourself holding a mug, doing something wild, changing the patterns of your day, thinking outside the box, if you will, and use the hashtag David Brier Live. And David, today, before the show is over, he'll figure out when to do it, and when there's a moment in the show. He'll look up on Twitter, and he'll just say, you are the winner, and now you'll know. So it has to happen during the live feed, you guys, because we have an international audience, so people are like, what do you mean today? I mean, like, before the show is over, before this live stream is over, and it's going to be over in probably about 60 minutes or so. The other thing is we're going to give away the 22 rules or the brand guidelines, and we're only going to give that in the chat for a period of 24 hours during the live stream. So when the live stream's over, that link will disappear, and that's that. So towards the end of the show, we're going to put that link in, and then you can download it via my Dropbox link, and then do with it as you will. Okay.
And Chris, we already have some awesome entries. We have one guy that posted the mug, and he's thinking outside of the box from inside a cubicle. So that's pretty cool.
These clever guys on the internet.
We also have Jason Kingman in the YouTube chat who said that he actually worked at Dyson in the design department during this whole thing. He said it was a great experience. So
excellent. That's really cool. Our audience is really cool. So the other thing I want to talk about a little bit is there are students Something is going on with my audio piece here. We have students who watched our channel and they want to learn something about branding. So you made a good decision today by tuning in live. How many people are on the live chat? How many people are tuning in live today on YouTube? Ben, do you have that number for me?
I do not. Okay, 350 right now.
350. Okay, the number has grown by 100 since we started. So let's see. Let's see if we can't keep delivering value.
Our goal.
Our goal is to smash 1,200, guys. So we're far from our goal. So let's just keep going. Let's give them more value. So I'm gonna ask another question. From a student perspective, what do you wish they would teach students in school about branding? Like, let's just pick one or two things.
Oh,
I'm asking you.
I would love to.
Yeah, fire away, sir.
Good. All right. So basically, that branding is about serving the client, helping the client's dream become manifest in the world. It's not. It is, and I understand it. I understand it because I mean, just as an example, I mean, here I'm just going to give you a little reference point. Did you see that? You see that painting there?
Yeah.
I did that when I was 16 years old. I was painting fine art paintings when I was a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And so the thing is I came from an art background. I was an illustrator first, then a designer, and then I started to embrace. And I was curious, why did certain types of design just completely envelop me and blow my mind? Why would I love walking into Midtown Manhattan and seeing all the scalped posters for the Broadway shows and go, whoa, and just stand there in awe? And the thing is they were, knowingly or not, those designers were successfully taking me on a journey, taking me on a story. A great brand will take the viewer on a story. It isn't just a matter of, oh, I want something for my own personal self-expression. Now, the thing is now I don't see those as conflicting, but I see you need to marry those things so that they align. It's like, how do I express that? Because we're all in the storytelling business. Now, some of us are going to use design a little more. Some of us can use typography a little more. Some of us can use art direction a little more. Some of us are going to use motion a little more. Some of us are going to use the power of language and how it weaves and takes somebody on a journey. And so to me, what I wish that they taught students in school is, first of all, understand that branding, you are taking something and you're exporting something into the world that's either going to live or die by the job that you do.
Okay.
It's going to live or die by that. Now, you can give it your all and do a really good job, but you've got to be attentive. You've got to look at what are the obstacles for others discovering that. And the obstacles, that's where branding and the brilliance of branding comes into play. And this is what I find that is not taught enough in school. It's like, what are the obstacles to your solution actually taking off and becoming alive? And the obstacles are things like cliches. I go over that in the book a lot, because cliches are things that you and I have seen too much of. It's like we've been there, we've done that. It's not new and fresh. Because if you and I, as craftspeople, as designers, as creators, if we are meeting expectation, like, you know what, they need a logo. Okay, great. So you can design a logo. But if you just do a design logo and you don't look around and see, well, what else is out there? What are the other logos looking like? You're not doing your job fully. So you're too insulated. So if you're in school as a student, break through the walls of insulation, break through the idea that you are just a practitioner. You are very potentially a creator of a universe. And that universe is your client's world that you are breathing life into.
Okay, I have a lot of things to follow up with you on. And those of you guys that are following this conversation, if you ask a question that's relevant to what we're talking about right now, I'm sure Ben will bring it up. A lot of you guys are asking some crazy questions, but ignore those for right now. When we do open Q&A, then you guys can ask those questions. So you say we're all in the business of storytelling. You want to take the viewer, the audience, on a journey. So here's the thing that I've seen, having taught design for 15 years. Everybody thinks we're taking them on a journey. Everybody already thinks they are a storyteller. But somewhere along the way of the intention and the message and it being transmitted to the audience, it's lost. So people assume, okay, so I've designed this, and I tell my story about how I came up with this cover and all these designs, and they present that. But as soon as that work is left to stand there on itself, on its own, that story is no longer being transmitted. So you have to be able to connect the intent, your story, and what somebody else receives. So the transmission and the reception of the message and the story has to be somewhat one-to-one. And I think your quote, one of your 6 quotes that I totally butchered when I read it, is like, if you have some brand, some differentiators, but if you like you bury it and you want somebody trying to figure it out, then you're going to totally lose them, right? So if you have this intent, but somebody has to work too hard to figure it out, or it's impossible to figure it out, like it's like the best kept secret, your story that is, then it's not going to work. Anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah.
Please.
It's a very interesting little, it's a subtlety. Probably took me about 30 plus years to realize this, but it's this. The best designs, the best brands, the best solutions, they have future built into, and this is not to stroke you, I see you got the future. they have future built into the solution that they've created, as opposed to a similar, like, let's take, all right, let me give you a very tangible. If you took 2 logo designers and like a really good logo designer, I mean, technically good skills, they understand typography, they understand shape, form, etc. Good, and comparable one. Now, what would be the difference if we were to see that one was really adding a hell of a lot more value than the other? Well, the thing is this first one, let's figure that this guy is doing just what he's doing. He's designing a great logo, and that's it. Now you take the other guy who's designing something of comparable technical expertise, but what he's done is he's actually looked at, okay, how does this need to be utilized in the different media that it will perform in? How is it going to be utilized if it needs to communicate in different countries, in different cultures? Packaging, large, small. In other words, they've actually built in a lot of future opportunities into the conceiving of that. That logo will be much, much, much more valuable than this one that was just technically done well.
I see. I like that.
So the amount of future incorporated into solutions. That's why you looked at, you look at I mean, you've probably run across the story. I loved when Steve Jobs, when they were coming up with the iPad and they did the first iPad, he was like, when they were done with that, even before they released it, they were saying, good. He's like, okay, show me iPad 2, iPad 3, iPad 4. He already, how do we make obsolete what we've just innovated?
Okay, so I like that you put in some objective ways to measure logos. So if we're looking at two marks that are objectively speaking, both proficient, technically sound, using solid design principles, the one that's more valuable and the one that should win is the one that it's considering or taking into consideration usage, the audience, how it translates, how it's going to scale. So those are very important things. Good.
Yes.
I like that. You cleared that up. Okay.
I have a question from the audience.
Do it.
Actually, a couple people have been asking this. So in order to have a successful career in branding, do you have to have a background in graphic design?
I saw that
question. Do you
question.
have to be a visual designer?
Well, I have a few different ideas about that. I mean, one is you have to be a great communicator. Now, I've seen some designers who, frankly, their work bores the hell out of me. It's very, very, it's very bland. It's not very exciting visually. But what they've done is, and they've relied more on the use of language and such like that. But to me, I think the most powerful is one who has at least the good skills to at least have judgment. They may not be able to craft it, but this is where you bring out the one part of me that, see, I remember when computers first came into the industry, because when I started the industry, there were no computers, there was no internet, there was no social media, there was no email, you didn't have all that crap to distract you, you didn't have a freaking smartphone to check first thing when you woke up and last thing when you went to bed. And we drew. We had drawing tables and we drew, and someone couldn't show up. It was kind of like, I sometimes will say to people, I say, here's a pencil, draw something for me. And like, well, I can show it to you on a computer. I said, no. The pencil was the original computer as far as I'm concerned. It's not doing anything more for you, and a computer isn't doing anything more for you. Bottom line is you're the one bringing the talent to the game. You know, the microphone didn't make the Beatles sound good. The Beatles made the microphone sound good.
Mm-hmm. I like that. Okay, so what's the answer to that question?
What was the question again?
Let's do round 2 on that one. Okay.
Do you need a background in visual design to have a successful career in branding? It's kind of a yes or no.
I would say it's certainly helpful, and it depends on your role in branding. You can be a brand strategist without that skill. Mm-hmm. You can be a brand planner. You can probably even, there are creative directors who don't have visual skill sets, but they know what looks good. They have the judgment factor. So you don't have to be the practitioner. So you can be involved from that standpoint. But if you're going to be in the trenches and actually creating it, then you better freaking know how to design your ass off.
Okay, I'm going to pull a brand intervention right now. I'm going to answer that question. The answer is yes. Oh, no, I'm sorry. The answer is no. Wait, what's the question again?
Where's your sound effect? We need more
Okay, hold on. I was so focused on the delivery of that line that I messed it up. Do you need to be a visual designer? The answer is no, you do not. Okay, let's move on. I have this page from your book, and before we get into this question, if people want to buy this book, Brand Intervention, let me hold up the book again. If you guys want to buy the hardcover book, please use our Amazon link. It's inside. It's, let me see how many pages. It's over 200 pages. Illustration, big words. Look at this, guys. We're talking about just key ideas here, not a lot of fluff in the book itself. So, Ben, you'll drop the link on how to buy the book?
Yep.
Through Amazon? Dropping it now. Dropping like it's hot. Okay, here we go.
Only buy the hardcover. Trust me, the production values in the hardcover are better than the paperback.
I have both. I will attest that the hardcover is on a different playing field. The paperback is not nearly as good. It's worth the hardcover. Okay. Yeah. All right, guys. I'm sorry, David. Here's the next one, and I would like for you to explain this. What is the 66% rule? Can you explain that?
I love this. Okay, it's very simple. Most brands and companies, what will happen is they're always going to be involved in two notable activities, which is pre-sales branding, right? In other words, they're going to promote it, and they're going to talk about it, and they'll get some PR. They'll do all this stuff pre-sale. And then there's during the sale. Now that during the sale could be when someone is visiting your website, your client's website, or it could be when they're in the salon that they're going to, or it could be when they're in the store, whatever, but that's like during the sales branding. And usually those two things conclude with the transaction or the completion. Okay, your hair's been cut, or you've been beautified, or whatever the hell you've had done to yourself. Or you're driving away with the car, and that's it. But the transaction right there, that is actually the beginning of your relationship. That is not the end of the relationship. Now, and so those are only two of what are actually three phases of branding. Mm-hmm. So we have pre-sales, we have during the sales, and then we actually have post-sales branding. And I realized this from one of my clients where we did something after the fact. And what happened was, it was so unexpected. It's when you and I as consumers don't engage. We're not expecting that additional thing. And it happened when my wife and I were shopping. We were shopping and we went to a Coach store, the Coach leather bags. Mm-hmm. And he was kind of like looking around different bags. And I was playing my responsible role. I was being sort of appropriately oblivious, at least in appearance. And I'm noticing what she keeps circling around on. And we walk out not having purchased anything. And then I sneak back. Oh, I forgot something. I get it. And I get the bag, and we get home, and I watch her undo the bag. So there's the Coach bag. Then there's the tissue paper. We all expect the tissue paper. So she undoes the tissue paper. Then there's the bag itself. And she's like, oh, you got the bag I was looking at? And I'm like, yes, I got the bag you're looking at. And then she opens up, and inside it's about a 4x5 little sepia toned booklet, probably 70% visuals, just pictures of the craft of, actually making the leather stuff, and just some words. And it probably took her less than 3 minutes to read that little booklet. But by the time that she was done, first of all, so it wasn't expected. 2, it wasn't necessary. But 3, it elevated this bag that was now a purchase from being a purchase into now she just inherited this legacy of this craft that had been handed down over the ages. And I saw the power of that. It probably cost them 30 cents, but it transformed. It was unexpected, and it transformed, and it enlightened, and it informed that this is what we're offering and what we're helping our clients with. What they're making is part of the package. It's like, this mug is cool, but it's the fact that this mug allows me to enjoy my coffee is what really makes it cool, right? And I feel good while doing it. So I learned that post-sales branding phase, I really noticed the shift that had occurred, and that was the thing. So I realized most companies are doing just 2/3 of them, and that's the 66% rule. If you want to do that, you're going to be on the same playing field as everybody else. But if you want to elevate your game, whether you're a practicing design professional or whether you are a student, a husband, a wife of an incredible company, it doesn't matter. You can apply this to life. Do that extra, what is unexpected at the back end, and you'll then actually build and develop a relationship and not just a transaction.
I love that. And actually what you did with your wife was delivering some of that wow factor, because you pretended to be Captain Oblivious, knowing very well if you had the opportunity to strike like a cobra, you'd come in and whoosh, and you're going to just strike like that, right? And so your wife goes home, it's like, what is this?
Yep.
And honey, just open it up. Let's see what happens. Then she's like, oh my God, not only did you buy it for her, you got the right one and you were paying attention. And I know, having been married for quite some time myself, my wife really appreciates when I'm paying attention when she thinks I'm not, when you get the details right. And so in sharing this experience, I want to break it down for our audience. And I notice a lot of times when I travel overseas, I may be a little biased on this, and you guys let me have it in the comments below if this is the case. But when I travel abroad in developing countries, they only focus on the transaction. It's just a bazaar. Things get exchanged, and you give me money, I give you product, and there's no customer service. Even during the sale, it's rough. And I sit back and I'm like, why do certain countries have brands that dominate the world, that they translate the experience and they become global brands, and they don't just remain in the local market because they've been able to differentiate themselves. They've been able to tell their story. And I love your Coach example, because the little booklet told the story about how the bag was birthed. Like, meet the parents. This is the father. This is the mother. This is how many hours it took to craft this. Because otherwise, it's just another container to hold your junk. And so in doing so, they took a commodity item, a bag that could be bought for, in orders of magnitude, for $1, $10, $100, $1,000, $10,000, $100,000, and they were able to position them somewhere in there. And so it makes you cherish the bag a little bit more, and that little unexpected touch. So here's another spread from your book. I just want to give our audience a preview into what the book looks like and how it's designed and written. What typeface are you using here, by the way?
Francois 1. It's definitely it's a variation on Franklin Gothic, obviously.
Okay. Excellent. So can you give us another example of how some of these brands like Harley Davidson, Nike, you already talked about Coach, or Airbnb, went from selling the customer to wowing the customer? I'd love to hear another example. Since the book is very tight in the way it's written, there aren't a gazillion examples. So I'd like to pull another one from you if I can.
Totally. You're talking about as far as the post sales example?
Yeah, like how another big company goes beyond.
It's not a company. Well, I'm trying to think if there's one that we all know. Well, I'll give you an interesting one. Tommy Bahama.
Okay.
Tommy shirts, right? Mm-hmm. Tommy Bahama shirts. Their attention to detail is so badass, And then when you look at their labels are embroidered and freaking little works of art. They don't have to do that, but they just go that extra little. So when, after you've gotten it home and you're kind of like, oh, I'm digging this pattern, man. This is really cool. I'm feeling a little this.
They make
little
Hawaiian
that.
shirts, right? Mostly.
Yeah,
like
they
leisure
really,
travel clothing.
yeah.
Okay.
It's the leisure travel clothing, but they always get the details right. I mean, their crossovers on the shirts they're always perfect. But I always remember seeing on the inside labels on the back, they would be embroidered and like stunning works of art. I would study them for minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't have to do that. They made that additional experience for me that much better. And that's just a little example. But I'll tell you one that I think everyone can appreciate because they've probably seen something like this. A client of mine, they were in the party favor industry, right?
Mm-hmm.
They end up, I do a whole rebrand of them, and sales they're crushing it. They're sending out hundreds of packages every day. They're starting to fill up 1-2 UPS trucks every day, and it's starting to fill up. So I said, guys, here's what I need you to now do. I said, to add to build your relationships. I said, I want you to send a handwritten thank you, because their client base was 100% female, and they were dealing with bridal showers, baby showers, bachelorette parties, etc., all personalized and very cool and very fun. So the people got to actually know them. So I said, what I want you to do is I want you to actually write, and we designed this awesome card, fold over card, die cut, the whole deal. I want you to handwrite a note to them. Pick however many you can handle. So it ended up being, we peaked out at around about 75 a day before people got writer's cramp, people with good handwriting. And I said, I want you to do that. And first they said, oh, you mean like send them a thank you email? I said, you send a thank you email, I'll break your fingers. I said, everyone does email. I want you actually to send something in the post as a thank you. After the fact, when they don't expect it, about 1 week later, how was your party? How was your this? How was your that? The response they got was overwhelming. People were blown away. One, that they took the time to do it. Two, that it was actually put in the mail with a stamp, and that it was handwritten, the whole deal. They were shocked. But that's just a little small example, because sometimes people think when they read something like this, they think they've got to do something wild and heroic, and it can be in the details.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'd like to prompt. Yeah, I'd like to prompt people that are watching this on YouTube and Facebook, because we're streaming both there, to share a story that somebody, some brand, a service, a product that you've had experience with where they wowed you, and maybe we can do a collection of stories after the show. So go ahead and comment below, share a story with us so we can read. And I'm inspired by your story in terms of the coach thing, and I want to share a story, something that I'm now recalling in my mind in terms of like how the person went above and beyond, did something unexpected, and created an experience for me. This is really getting into experience design. So maybe branding is another way of looking at experience design. Now, a while back, I ordered a book from Eli Altman called Don't Call It That. So I just wanted to get the book. And then I get this really interesting package, and it's got interesting printed, like bright orange tape around it with different typefaces. I open up, a book comes out, a poster, a handwritten note, stickers, all kinds of stuff starts falling out of this package. I was thinking, did Eli send this to me himself? Because I know he's going to be on the show, or does everybody get this? And it made me wonder, like I felt special, I felt unique, and I felt different, and that he valued the relationship of me deciding to part with hard-earned cash to buy his book. And somebody actually did write handwritten notes. And I asked him about it later when he was on the show, and he's like, somebody does that for us. Somebody is sitting there writing. He's got a great partner who ships out all this kind of stuff with bookmarks. And when you get more than what you pay for or what you feel like you paid for, then that experience deepens, and it's awesome. So I'd love to hear your stories, you guys. Comment below. Share them with us, because I'd love to read them. All right, here we go. Before we go ahead.
I have one more question for you.
Yes, go ahead.
So you and I had spoken whenever it was, some months ago. We decided we were going to do the show. We talked about some logistics and different things, and we decided
I know where this is going.
Awesome about having some signed books. So I sent you some signed books, but did I just send you some signed books?
You did not.
What did I do above and beyond.
Well, I'll tell the story here. Well, first, David ordered some books from his publisher, and they sent him the softbound books, and he's like, "No, this is not acceptable. Send me the hardcover books." So it took a little longer. So he got the hardcover. So he's doing quality control before I even saw anything, and then he sends me it in a box with hand lettering, custom hand lettering on the box that looked like it took time. So I think in the story and picking up what we're talking about here is if you show effort, that matters to people. So you spend the time to sit there with a Sharpie and to design something as the future. I still have the box. I haven't thrown the box away, and all the other boxes have wound up in the trash already. So I'm still like, I just want to look at it a little bit more before I let this thing go, right?
Yeah.
But that's the connection that we're talking about.
Yep.
Excellent. Okay, Ben, before I do the next question, let's open it up to our audience. Now, we will accept any question on branding or brand intervention, or if you have a question about David, his process, or your own struggles around this, go and ask us on Facebook and on YouTube, and we'll send them on up to David.
So we also have some stories here rolling in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so somebody ordered a vinyl for their collection, and they received a sticker with their name and company name on it, with the vinyl supporter sign right on top of that. So it's kind of a custom sticker inside the actual package.
That is very cool.
That's from We Are CG. Fo says a place that he used to buy hookah products from would would draw on the actual box. And so these individual drawings that came with the packaging became a social media sensation, which is pretty neat.
Very cool. So do you have any questions, Ben? And how many people are tuning in live now? Has our number gone up?
Yeah, we're almost at 500.
Sweet. So we're growing here.
Yeah.
So we started at 250. We're double now.
Yep. So we have a bunch of
everybody should tell their teams and their colleagues and their friends and allies and their ex-wives and ex-husbands, jump on the freaking show, man. Come on. We want to break 1,200.
All right, so we have a bunch of questions rolling in about storytelling.
Let's do it.
People want to know what they can do to improve their storytelling.
David?
They seem to be really focused on how it looks, and they want to bring in that second part, that brand story. So what are some things that they can do to improve that?
Well, I'll say from my own experience, I had started out, for those that know a little bit of my earlier history as a designer, I was very much inspired by Herb Llewellyn. Now, Herb was, besides being an incredible logo designer, he was also an amazing editorial designer. He was the designer of Upper and Lower Case, which was the publication for International Typeface Corporation. This is all pre-computer, everybody. So this is before there's my fonts and digital stuff and the da-da-da-da-da. So I really much got to appreciate language, typography, message, and meaning as really almost inseparable. So to me, one has to learn to really love and appreciate what do words mean. That's a lot. That's an enormous part of it. If you don't have some appreciation of what words can do, it's literally, it's kind of like, it's like if a motion graphics designer is trying to talk to a print designer or vice versa, and neither one understands the other's sphere that they influence, they won't be able to appreciate and interface with it. So the language, the use of words, what they mean, how they give and take, because not everything is an instrumental. See, to me, visuals, I thought a lot of times I use musical metaphors and food metaphors. In this particular case, it's kind of like, to me, the art is the music. The story, the words are the lyrics. And so not everything's going to be an instrumental, and not everything's going to be an a cappella performance, and it's great when those things come together and they just take you someplace. That to me is the thing of that. I also find things that excite you. I would say very, very simply, find what stories do you read, or what bloggers do you read that you're like, I really dig that. And if you really dig it, not just because it's kind of like about some kind of thing you're geeking out about, but you like, it took you somewhere, it did something for you, it moved you. Look at that. And I would start collecting those things. That's what I started to do. I would literally collect and create a swipe file of wow, this was an amazing advertisement. This blew my mind. I didn't see it coming. That was brilliant. And I keep it. And same thing I would just do for book covers, different things. And that's what I would start to do.
I like that advice. What you're saying is find other stories that resonate with you, whether they're in written form, a package, or a story like Coach, and study what they did and look at how they impact you, and to break down the model, the framework. And we can all be attracted to different kinds of stories and experiences. That's what makes the world so unique and diverse. And you can start to figure that out. So you'll quickly realize it wasn't the logo. And I know there's a lot of people who make logos in our audience. That's why they're asking that question. It's most often not just the way it looks. It goes way beyond that. So you're talking about words and the precision of words. I just want to pull up something from rule number 3, I believe, from the 33 steps. And I love this quote from Mark Twain that you put included in the book. It says, "The difference between the almost right word and the right word is really a large matter. 'Tis the difference between the lightning bug and the lightning." So choosing the right words and putting them together in the right sequence matters. So I think that's a great bridge to bring up another page from the book, another spread, if you will. So I want to read this out. So it's on storytelling. So here we go. Brands are in the storytelling business. This is what you write. "We are here to tell a story that keeps you and me, 1, on the edge of our collective seats, or 2, has us reaching for the tissues to wipe away the tears." In other words, as brands, we must step back and 1, take a look at the big picture, 2, define who our hero is, 3, establish who is the villain that we oppose, and 4, make an impact. Ignore the sequence and you will become the villain. Can you expand on this, David? I love the way this is written. Again, not a lot of words on here, so there's a lot for us to kind of figure out. So help fill in the gaps, please.
I know. I couldn't help but smile when you were reading it because I was like, oh man, that's some really good shit. So
Yeah, who's the smart guy who wrote that? Oh, right, that was me.
so,
Where's my laptop?
so,
I have none. Okay.
I mean, the basic thing is that I mean, there's so much I could say here. It's basically this: the great brands. Oh, and I'll tell you actually the inspiration behind. I remember the epiphany, the inspiration when I was. Did you read Steve Jobs' the authorized biography?
I did not.
Okay. The authorized biography. It was an okay read. It wasn't the best thing I ever read on Steve Jobs, but I was very curious because I no question I admire the genius of Steve Jobs, no question. But I remember when he came back to Apple, and Apple was on the verge of bankruptcy.
They were.
And they were just.
They were on the ropes.
They were on the ropes, and they had like a gazillion SKUs, and they had lost focus. And I remember he was looking at how do we still have a legion of fans. How do we reconnect with them? And I remember this analysis that he looked at. He says, when you want to know someone fast, ask them who their heroes are. And that inspired the Think Different campaign.
Oh.
That was always interesting to me. So it's like, if I want to know someone really fast, who do you admire? Who do you aspire to be? Who are your heroes? I'll know immediately what their values are, right? I found that very interesting. So I was looking at, well, that's interesting. And as I started to look at that further, I realized the brands that I work on and the brands that I admire, they are equally for something as they are equally opposed to something. So obviously, you take a look at something like Nike and you go, okay, just do it. It was like they were pro, get off your ass and do something. They were against excuses.
Right.
Right? Very simple. It doesn't have to be complex. It doesn't have to be long-winded. It could just be like, boom, boom. It's like, you know what? We're into change. We're not into stagnancy. We're into stuff that blows your mind rather than stuff that merely meets your expectations. I mean, you have dichotomies. Life is made up of dichotomies. And so that's the thing here. It's like, you know what? If I fail to, because the best brands will tell you the complete story, and it can be very simple, right? It's like, I mean, you take Harley Davidson, you go, okay, it's like freedom of the open road. I mean, that's what they're for. And what they're against is not being true to yourself, because they consider that to be true to yourself. You're a weekend warrior or whatever. So, so to me, it's those two things. The more that we own everything of a story, of a brand, all sides of it, the better we are at telling that story and really doing it well.
Okay. So I was, while you were talking here, something was racing through my mind. I had to find it in the book itself. So on page 24, and just to dive back into this a little bit, about how too many people are focused on the transactional sales model, right? Where they just consider the goal as the sale rather than the customer relationship. And so we talk a lot about the business of design. And so many people in our audience are always asking, like, how do I sell this? How do I sell this? It really crystallized it for me, the way you talk about it, and that you have to provide value and how you exceed, not just meet, but exceed expectations. Merely meeting it is not good enough, right? What we want to do is to exceed it.
Meeting expectations is a death sentence. Yeah.
I think you have a quote on that somewhere, don't you?
I think so. And if I haven't, I am going to do it right as soon as we're done.
So the question I had for you is, you talk about to consider the full branding cycle, and it's the difference between having a business and having a brand. And you talk about companies like Apple and Nordstrom. Again, can you fill in some gaps here and talk about how you do this from the creative point of view? So I'm a solopreneur. I'm a small design firm. I have 3 to 5 people, and I make visual things for a living. And I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now. I'm really bought into this whole program of creating value and moving beyond just design. I get your thing about words matter, telling stories, and to surprise us. What are some practical things, either from what other companies are doing or things that I can do? Give me some tactical steps that I can take.
Okay, and this is for a small design shop.
Yeah, let's say under 5 people, 1 to 5 people.
Okay. Good. So all right. So here's one barometer that I use that I always find helpful. I would literally take a piece of paper, and I would say, what are the things that are expected of us? Like just the things that like in other words, we show up and they expect, that we're going to be professional, we're going to be competent, we're going to be technically proficient, we're going to be up to date on stuff, we're going to be knowledgeable enough about their field to really be able to have good judgment, and we're going to be et cetera, et cetera. Those are like what are the things that are expected of us. Okay. Boom. Good. Now, what are the things that may not be expected but will add value and amplify 2 times, 4 times, 5 times, 10 times those things on the other side? So for example, okay, like I'll give you a simple example. It's probably like a very obviously stupid one, but it'll make the point. So we could say the expected is be able to design a logo. Good. Now, on the other side, it may be, okay, designing the system that makes sure that logo works in social media applications, online, in print, in large format, in small format, with slogans, without slogans, in monochromatic treatments, in full color treatments. That would be an example of like, you don't need to do all of those. Maybe you do a percentage of those, but that's just an example of the arrange. It's like that's taking the usefulness and the value of the expected, and now you're just amplified it a lot. Now, for example, let's say storytelling wasn't part of your what's expected of us. Now, if you were to say, you know what, we really need to be able to help them define their story, and we now can actually help do that, that adds value. That's beyond the expectation level. That's what those are a couple of examples.
That's excellent. You know what? I really like where you were going with this as I'm searching for the next thing, but you said like what is expected of us, and so many people, so many clients tend to like think that those are virtuous. And so I think if you even stop there, that would be wonderful. If you just use this as your next client interaction, use this prompt. Ask them, what is expected of us? And write down as many things and just show a lot of excitement. Like, yeah, this is great. Keep writing that. And then just say, okay, now we're going to throw that away. Tell me why we should care. Because that's what everybody expects. That's what you have to do just to show up to be in business. Opening the store on time and closing when you say, that's not going to win you any points. However, when, let's say if it's tax time and you're like H&R Block, if you open up earlier and close later, or if you hire an extra XYZ to expedite the line, that's unexpected. That's going above and beyond. So this is one way to cut through the nonsense, right? Because so many companies are gonna come to you if you're talking to the owner of a small business. They're like, yeah, this is what we do great, and you just list it. That's just what's expected. That's the cost of entry. And then ask them, okay, now we can't say anything else is on the list. Tell me why I should care.
Yep.
Why your customers should care, I should say. Okay,
Yep.
This is awesome.
Yeah, I
Ben?
have a question. So, We Are CG asks, what do you do if you have to work with a brand that's already screwed up visually? It's just an absolute mess. Do you start over, or do you try to salvage something from the wreckage?
So wait, so what, you said we are CGS? Is that an acronym for something?
Yeah, so that's the name. This question comes from We Are CG.
That's their name. That's all.
Yeah.
You could ignore that part.
Oh, okay. All right. So all right. So I my attention got stuck on. I didn't know if that was an acronym I was supposed to know. The
Oh,
meaning
no
of.
worries. Yeah. So, what do you do if you have to work on a brand that's already kind of visually screwed up? So, do you try to salvage something from the wreckage, or do you start over?
I will basically. I'm known for my brutal love of the truth, and basically, if I see something, I'll be the first one to say, "Here's the deal. This looks like shit. It's only going to look like actually really well crafted shit if I actually just like continue to work with this." And so I say, bottom line is, I'm not going to be happy with it. You're not going to be happy with it. And if you only want an incremental evolutionary phase, I may not be the right person to actually help you, because I'm here to basically help you create a revolution and actually do as much as I possibly can to help you achieve something that's on the order of a magnitude of a movement, and not just a sort of, ooh, we feel a little bit less horrible about ourselves today.
Gotcha. So you're just like, nuke the whole thing. Let's start over. Let's do this the right way.
Yeah. Well, because otherwise, what you're doing, otherwise, to me, one is patronizing the bullshit. Patronizing the bullshit doesn't work. I've never found it to work. I can't imagine you guys have either. I think once I took something and I tried. I think I gave it my earnest trial, and it was a disaster and painful all at the same time.
Okay, a follow-up question
Well,
from...
before you do that, I forgot. I didn't know he was going to be dropping some language here. So we forgot to mention there's like a discretionary warning parental advisory strong language contained in this
It's too
episode.
late.
Sorry.
It's
We'll
too late.
retroactively make that possible somehow.
I usually don't go beyond the SHIT. I don't take it too far.
Like Aaron Drabla came on the show. It's like I had that big warning up front, so everybody knew what they're getting into. And next time I'll add strong political opinions included. But Ben, please go ahead.
All right. Follow-up
Yeah,
question
yeah.
from Jose. What can he do with a client that doesn't have a nice story? I imagine this is a company that's not very friendly or kind of has a negative backstory.
Well, if the client doesn't have a good story, then there's some fundamental problem, and that has to be resolved. I mean, that's one is, I want to be real clear. One isn't creating a story just to make things sound nice. This isn't a poetry class where it's like, okay, free form, dance, and let's all sing Kumbaya together. That's not what it's about. It's about, I'll give you an example. I just took a client who they have created, it's a husband and wife, and they've created this amazing sauce that's amazing for seafood. It's like a kind of sauce that you could use for seafood, steak, and poultry, and veggies and stuff. And it's amazing. And it's a set of three. One is smoked, one is original, and one is gluten-free. They had put this under the category of Worcester sauce. And I said, why the hell are you calling it that? And I started to discuss, and I said, here are the problems I see with what you're calling it. And then I looked at their story. The story that they told was really not inspiring, but I could tell that there were the proper nuggets. And so what I did is when I showed it to them, I think it's the first time that I actually showed a client the entire story, rewritten, new brand, new visual, the whole new name and everything. They didn't change one single comma. They were blown away, but I could see what was there to be told. Sometimes you're going to end up with a brand. If there is not a great story to be told, you either don't have a great story, and that's a real problem, or You have failed to correctly identify who your audience is. Like, and that the identification of audience is critical to know. It's like this. It's like the father and the son who walk into the showroom, and the father's taking his son saying, hey, I'm going to get you your first car. And now they're going and they see this cool red car. It's a nice red car. It's an entry level. It's not something overly super luxurious, but it's nice. And so what happens is we go ahead and the father's looking at this and he's kicking the tires and he's looking at this at the safety rating and he's looking at the miles per gallon. Now the son looking at the exact same vehicle, he's looking at this and he's thinking to himself, chick magnet. So the thing is, wait a second, it's the same thing. But it's the audience. If the automotive manufacturer didn't know, hey dad, you want your son to get some, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, baby. It's like I don't father wants to be prematurely a grandfather all of a sudden. So that's not going to communicate to him. So you got to know who your audience is to define your story.
Okay, I have some things I want to add to this conversation, and then I want to cut away to my Twitter screen in a second to show you how many crazy photos we're getting in right now. And maybe while I'm talking about this, you can check your Twitter feed and potentially pick out a couple of winners to give the coffee beans to. Okay?
Okay.
All right,
Yep.
so I'm going to take a step back, you guys. Something happens today. The sun comes up. And when you see the sun, it's just the sun comes up, and it does that every single day, every 24 hours. And that's just the way it works. And through your lens, you decide, oh my God, it's really bright and sunny today. I'm going to have to wear a hat and put on a lot of sunblock. So it's your lens in which you see that, and so you judge it as being a negative thing. Somebody else comes on, it's like, finally, the first day of spring is here, the sun's coming out, this is amazing, couldn't have waited another second for winter to be over. So you judge it, the same sunrise as being a good thing. So through different eyes, you see things as good or bad. So when you say in that question, what do you deal with a client who has a bad brand story? I'm not sure that there's such thing as a bad brand story. There's just what has happened, how you look at it, how you present it to the world changes the way people see it. So you see it as a negative, and then you harp on the fact that it's negative. And I want to give you an example here. I remember reading a case study a while back on the agency who did the tourism campaign for Montana. So what they did was they asked a lot of people, what do you think about Montana? Like, there's nothing to do, there's nothing here, and this is what they kept hearing. These were all complaints. And the agencies, to all their credit, quickly realized something. People already assume there's nothing here, and so then they made what would be considered a negative thing into an attribute that they could be proud of. So they launched Montana, and the campaign line was, there's nothing here. And they show like wide open spaces of mountains and trees and rivers and things that outdoor enthusiasts would love to do. So I'm not sure that I would accept the judgment that they have a bad brand story. Just like there are not bad assignments or bad clients, they're just not creative people who can't do anything with that. So they took a negative and they made it a positive. And I love that, because when you want to escape, when you want to get away from the city and decompress and reconnect with nature, you want to go to a place that there's nothing here. And that's awesome. All right. Ben, we're coming up on the end of our show here. So let's go to my screen here for Twitter. Look at these photographs.
Aren't they awesome?
They're pretty awesome. Look at Tony Lopez there. Look at that guy. He's got like double promotion in there. That gets extra credit for something. I'm gonna just like that.
He also sent David a little, I don't know if it's like a secret hidden message or something, but he said he wants that brick of chocolate.
Well, we'll figure that out. No secret messages,
idea what
guys.
that means,
Hey,
but
you guys go get a hotel room. We'll talk about that later. And I love this one coming in from Felipe with his pinky finger out. Look at this. Oh my God, somebody just made their own Futur mug. I can't believe that. And they have David in the background. Oh my gosh. I don't know how many things we can get. Look at this. Somebody got their child involved there screaming away. That's from Blaze K. My goodness. You guys. And then due to the wide angle lens.
Super wide.
Super stretchy. This is ahead of Infinity War. This is Mr. Fantastic here. Recasted.
That guy's in a Snuggie. Straight up. Straight up rocking the Snuggie.
Oh my God. Look at these things. Okay, I don't even know what's going on here. I'm a little scared.
He said he's out of coffee, so he's using hot sauce to stay awake. I was like, no, dude. You're gonna wreck your stomach.
Not good. Okay.
Is that what he was doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's hot sauce, and he's pouring it in the Futur mug. So, David, good job there, I think. And you're going to have some stomach issues later. All right, you guys. There's some really good photos in here. This person has 3 different mugs that tells us a different story. After 5 p.m., there's coffee, and then there's tea. Excellent job, you guys. Good job. So, David, would you like to do the honors and pick, I don't know how many people you want. Let's go ahead and announce them. Should we do that? Are you ready, David? Or do you need a little more time?
I do believe I'm ready. Let me see here. But hold on one second. What do we got here? Just looking.
And there better not be any blind employees doing this right now.
Not all these guys. See, I just gotta the disclaimer. I gotta remind people on the disclaimer. It's like you gotta have a U.S. address.
Oh, okay.
Like,
we'll sort that out. You can right, the Philippines, right? That's gonna be a tough one. But they're just having fun. That's cool, right? There's no harm in playing.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. Like I can't like let me just see here.
All right.
Let's see. So well, I mean I think that now Tony, I don't know what could be done, Tony, about what he's talking.
The chocolate brick.
See this?
Is that what that is? What is that?
This is cure number 34. This is the chocolate.
Okay, right. I've seen that in the book.
Okay.
You have a tin of chocolate that you give out?
Here, see, this is the whole the chocolate, the whole deal. This is actually solid chocolate, laser engraved. Trying to get a reflection here.
It looks like there's 2
like
pieces
secret.
missing from it.
Oh, there are pieces missing. Trust me.
Wait. Hold that up again. Hold that up again to camera, please. Now flip it upside down.
Upside down?
Rotate it upside down so that the small end is on the bottom. The small end is on the bottom. Rotate it 100. See, it looked like chocolate underwear. So I was like, oh my God, what is going on? David and Tony, you guys have your own special thing. Take that offline, please. All right. That's a chocolate break. All right. We'll figure it out. At some point, I don't want to take up more valuable time of the show, but we will pick somebody. I'm encouraged by seeing these crazy photos from you guys. I have at least one more question I have to ask you, okay? So let me put this up on the screen. Here we go. Can you explain the difference between what a company makes versus what the customer buys? I love this part in the book. I think people would need to hear this.
Yeah. This is
This is a big one.
it's an enormous one.
Right.
So the thing is most, I'm saying like 98% of companies, entrepreneurs, people they are basically, they spend so much time working on the thing that they're creating, and that they end up selling they end up selling the thing. And you know what I'm going to do? Hold on one second. I'm going to grab something because I actually have some great examples.
Okay, go ahead. So we will fill it up with data. Ben, let's do some banter. Are there any other questions or people saying funny things now?
Yeah.
Hashtag chocolate underwear, you guys. What else is going on, Ben?
We had some questions about audio. Guys, if you submitted a question that didn't really apply directly to the talk, it was ignored. Sorry for that. We're just trying to keep on track. Chris, you could probably answer this question. Do you think it's more difficult to learn how to talk or to learn how to create and design?
How to talk? You learn how to talk when you're 3 years old. What do you mean? What do you mean? I think there's more to that, Ben. Let's read between the lines, if you will. What do they mean? How to talk? Like how to present your work? How to communicate?
When you guys when you're ready for me.
Okay, let's answer this thing and then we'll cut back to David.
I think it's having an effective communication. Communication skills are learned. And for me, that was a little bit more difficult than to actually learn how to create.
Okay.
That came more naturally to me than dealing with people.
All right. And let's see if I don't contradict myself here. Learning anything new is inherently difficult or it's inherently easy. It's your attitude towards learning something. So if you were to talk to somebody who writes for a living and ask them to design something or do a photo comp, they're going to say that's really difficult. I wasn't born with that skill. And you're like, no, you can learn this. So then you go to the visual person and say, I want you to learn how to do public speaking and present ideas and communicate complex concepts. And they're like, no, that's really difficult. I don't think one is hard or easy. It's just a thing to do. And if we can strip away some of that judgment, filter out the lens, it might make the whole process of learning things easier. We accept that we will not be good at something the first time we do it, and that nobody is, or very few people are, and that it's just part of the process and the journey is something we should aspire to do. So if you're really good at the visual aspects, I would encourage you to learn how to speak, how to present, to learn how to read people in a room, and how to be a more empathetic listener. I don't think anyone is any harder or easier than the other. They're all just things to do. Is that okay, Ben?
Yep.
Okay, let's get back to David. David, what do you want to show us?
Okay, so the basic thing is as far as the buy versus sell. So here's some examples that I have. So Chanel number 5, what they sell is fragrance. That's actually what they sell. It's a recipe, it's a formulation. That's it.
It's
What people
alcohol
buy-
with ingredients that
some
make it fragrances. That's what are mixed in, like flowers and bark and all kinds of stuff, right?
Exactly. But what people buy is feeling and smelling attractive. Okay. The Haagen-Dazs, I love this one for Haagen-Dazs. What they sell is ice cream. What people buy is the perfect adult indulgence.
Hey, what page number are you on right now? You guys read
Oh,
along in the book. Are you on the book right now?
No, this is a something else.
Oh, okay.
Years ago.
Okay, I see. All right, keep going.
It's not in the book. So these are just some examples. But but Dyson, we talked about Dyson. So
Yes.
what they sell is they do sell a vacuum cleaner, but what people actually buy the anti-vacuum cleaner vacuum cleaner. Interestingly, okay. Or one of my favorite ones is like Porsche. What they sell is basically performance vehicles. But what people buy is the ultimate status toy in the passing lane.
The ultimate status toy in the passing lane.
The passing lane. I mean, the bottom line is this. It's like, for us to understand what people are buying, we have to go, well, what is it they're hoping to get out of it? People don't care. If I say to a woman, I say, hey, I have this special formulation, blah, 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 and I talk about all of that stuff. That's the stuff I'm selling. They're not going to be as interested in that. But if I talk to them and I say, and knowing what they want to buy, which is, hey, I do have something that will actually make you appear 10 years younger in a matter of 3 days. That's what she's going to want to buy. Now, if I just say, now this bag of rusty nails, she didn't care that it was rusty nails. I said, just take that and just ring that by your head, on each side of your head, morning and night, when you get up in the morning and when you go to bed at night. She doesn't mind about that because I'm not selling I'm not selling the thing. People don't care about the thing. People didn't care about this thing that we hold and treasure.
The communication device.
We didn't care about the metal. And even Apple, when Apple came out with the iPod, prior to the iPod, this is before the iPhone, before the iPad. So the iPod comes out. It's an MP3 player. There were already 3 or 4 other MP3 players that had come to the market. But what they all did was they sold what they made, which was, oh, blah, 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 so much memory, so much this, plays music, but whatever like that. But they sold what they made, as opposed to what people wanted to buy. Apple was smart. They came out with a great campaign with the colors, all this kind of stuff. And then they said it at the end. They said, 1,000 songs in your pocket. That's what people wanted to buy. They didn't care about the thing. So Apple didn't try and sell the device. They sold what people wanted to buy.
What does that say? 1,000 songs in your pocket. What does that say about the person?
Pocket. Oh, because if you remember from the ad, it's like you had the little thing, and you literally saw someone shoving it into their back pocket. You saw the device, and it was 1,000 songs in your pocket.
So I think if I'm trying to read here the situation, that prior to that, and I had those devices like Rovio or one of those things.
Yep.
It was a giant thing.
Right.
It looked like a CD player, and it didn't function that well, and it contained your music. And it's the same way that Dell markets versus the way Apple markets. Dell's going to be competing for you on price, speed of delivery, and all the specs, the motherboard, the processor, the RAM, and they're always comparing megahertz. And I think, honestly, the reason why Apple went this direction, because they couldn't win that game. So this is one of those things, and this is a branding case study for you guys to think about, because it was always the megahertz wars, right? The Intel chips were faster than the Motorola chips, and people were too obsessed over the number, and they had to find a creative way around this. And this is where somebody had asked earlier about a bad brand story. So if you had focused like, we'll never win that war of being faster or releasing products with higher gigahertz counts, we need to do something else. So Steve Jobs changed the game. He's like, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about what we can win. And the Think Different campaign, the 1,000 songs in your pocket. But I think, thinking back now, when it says 1,000 songs in your pocket, that speaks to people who really love music.
Exactly. And then that which goes back to knowing who your audience is, which we talked about earlier.
Right. So this reminds me of something that you guys have made me, you might have heard me say before. Simon Sinek says this in his wonderful lecture, Start With Why, that people don't buy what you do, people buy why you do it. People trust other people who believe what they believe. So this is about communicating values and belief systems. This is much deeper than the machinery, the rubber, the metal, the steel. So we're going to tap into a feeling that you want to fulfill this emotional want, and the better you can communicate and articulate that to other people, the better off you are. So in your example of the cream making you look younger, or whatever it is, you're really packaging and selling self-esteem, or somebody who's trying to relive their life as a younger person. So you're tapping into the desire, the fountain of youth thing.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for clearing that up. You brought some great examples to talk about. I think we're sort of at the end of our show here, if we can. So what we want to do now is for all our live, whoever's made it through the whole show, we're going to reward them.
Yes, and we're going to change the way we reward. The link, we're having some technical issues with it.
Doesn't work.
We're going to switch that around and send that over email, if that's okay. What do you guys think?
How do we do that?
We can send it to our newsletter.
But I only want to reward people watching this live right now, Ben.
Okay.
Have you been able to download the file? And
No.
my link was bad?
Yep.
Darn it. Okay.
Yep.
Well, I think David wanted to say something. So while David is talking, I will fix this link and we'll figure this thing out, because I'm going to give you something.
Yeah.
Definitely shoot it to
Cool.
me on email.
Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because the bottom line is, I mean, we've covered a lot of things, and I'm sure that we've probably just touched the tip of the iceberg. So, I mean, if there's any like burning great questions or things that you've observed, Ben, or anything that you've seen since you've been watching the chat, then the whole deal, if there's anything, I always like to really make sure that people really get incredible value, and that really walk away blown away. My goal is, I'm not interested in them just going, that was a really nice hour and a half. I want them to be like, that was freaking the most amazing hour and a half of my year.
Cool. Awesome. Well, I do have a really good question for you. So Jay asks, so he's niched his clients. So he's specializing in an industry. And what he's running into is it's difficult to differentiate the brands that he's actually creating for his clients. So how can he work inside of an industry and still differentiate the brands that he's creating?
Can you give me a little more of an example? What's he doing specifically?
Let's say he's in the automotive industry and he's specializing in building brands for cars. How can he differentiate the brands that he builds if he's in that vertical? What are some strategies for him?
Okay. Well, the bottom line is it's very simple. He has to understand the audience. There's no way in hell, no way, that every one of those buyers, those customers of those particular brands are the same as each other. That's just statistically impossible, right? In other words, they're either going to be of a different socioeconomic caliber, or they might be aesthetically, there might be a certain functionality to the cars. So in other words, he has to look deeper into who is the audience that particular manufacturer best serves. What are they allegiant to? And if they're allegiant to the brand, what about that brand? What are the values that brand represents? Because you can't, the greatest criminal to branding is the lack of differentiation. So it's literally like saying, well, all cars are the same. We know that, that's like saying, oh, a Yugo is the same as an Aston Martin. They are both cars, but they're slightly different. And so you got to look at, and obviously the person who bought the Yugo is going to be a very, very different audience than the person who buys the Aston Martin. So the thing is, it's literally not right now, he hasn't looked far enough into the audience's values, the audience's What are the things that are important to them? You know, is it the ride? Is it the feel? Is it the comfort? Is it looking amazing? Is it appearing like I don't know, the most amazing person on the red carpet? What's the goal? What's the objective? Looking young again, looking old again, looking, independent. What are the things that go along with it? That's what I would go with it.
Awesome.
Super.
We're ready.
The code works now.
We
guys.
are ready.
I messed up. A user error once again. Blame me. Let me shoot myself.
Oh.
Okay, yeah. Ugh. All right. Ben, what we're going to do is we're going to drop the link in the chat window on YouTube right now. We're going to drop it in there. And that's going to be up for only 24 hours, you guys. That's just for you guys who made it through the entire broadcast here, sticking with us live this fine Wednesday morning. And you guys can download it now.
The link is dropped.
It is dropped.
The
and,
link has
and
been
it will
dropped.
be changed or deleted quite soon. So grab it, have it. And I want to thank David. But before we go, it's time for rapid fire questions. David, are you ready?
I am ready.
We're going to get the game show. Here we go. I'm going to throw out. Oh, don't show him. Don't show him. Never show the people my questions. All right, David, here we go. Just focus on David. I'm going to read the question. I'm going to give you a word. It's free association, and you just tell me whatever comes to your mind. Let's keep it super short. All right, you ready?
Okay. Yep.
Favorite band?
The Beatles.
Okay, where's my, I'm just like, I can't find my, that's not it. There we go. Okay.
Wait a second. Since you took so long, I'm gonna make my answer longer.
Okay.
The Beatles.
I didn't want to give you the wrong dinger. Okay. Whose ambulance is that? Is that us? Is that our fire truck? Yeah. Next time, just do me a favor and hit the mute button on your side. Okay. Favorite city?
New York City.
Okay. That was expected. Who is your hero?
It sounds a little cliche, but the first one in mind is Steve Jobs. I love what
Okay.
Steve did.
You have two? You said the first one is? What do you, wait.
No, Steve.
Okay, just
Go
go
with
Steve. Okay, excellent. Okay. A regret.
Oh, I had, when I was early in my career, literally just a couple years into my career, I had created a large magazine called Graphic Relief. It was a collaborative thing. I as an independent, I just went to printers, typographers, this, that, the other, illustrators, photographers, and I created 4 issues of these. And I had gotten an offer from, I don't think American Showcase is out anymore, but American Showcase was the premier photography and illustration showcase book. They used to come out with multiple books throughout the year, and they offered me an investment, and I quote unquote knew better, and I was like, no, it's not enough, and I turned it down.
Oh my
I
God,
was extremely naive. I was very stupid.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a ding for that. Boom. Last one. A guilty indulgence.
Dark chocolate.
With Tony, shaped in like an underwear, like an undergarment. Okay, you guys, before we say goodbye to David, here's information on how you can get in touch with him. I pulled the logo off the internet, but you guys can go to risingabovethenoise.com to find more about him. He's a prolific writer. There's a bunch of blog posts, all kinds of information, useful tools and tips for you in the branding space. If you need help, he's a prolific writer. And you can find him on Twitter, at least, at David Brier. Where else can they find you? Are you on Instagram too?
Oh yeah, you can find me on Instagram. You'll find me on Instagram, David Brier on Instagram, and also YouTube. They can find me on YouTube.
That's right.
I have a thing that I started on 1 Minute Wednesdays. If you want a little 60-second jolt every week, bam.
So are you saying you're a minute man?
Oh.
I was just kidding. All right. He had to think about that, you guys. See, it's good to stump the guest.
All I'll say is I know one definition of Minuteman that I'm willing to apply here.
Yes. Okay, so you agreed to that one. Okay, guys, before we say goodbye, I just want to give David Brier a big round of applause, guys. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Woo!
Oh yeah.
Thank you so much. It was a lot for us to kind of plan and get this all set up, and here we are. Thank you for coming on the show. I think you gave me a lot of insight and things that I'm still thinking and processing about right now, that it's going to impact the way we design brands. Thank you so much for that. You guys, we're going to get out of here. Thank you very much. I want to remind everybody that's tuning in that you are not defined by your past. The future is what you make it. See you guys next time.